On the third day, as the morning mist still clung to the hillside, the crowds gathered once more. They had come to hear the conclusion of Jesus' teaching, a teaching unlike any they had heard before. Some had traveled from distant villages, spending the night under the open sky rather than miss a word. Jesus looked out at them, his gaze both compassionate and challenging. Having addressed how they should relate to God, he now turned to how they should relate to one another. "Do not judge, or you too will be judged," he began. "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." A tension eased across many faces. In a society stratified by religious observance, where some were deemed sinners and others righteous, this teaching offered a breath of fresh air. But Jesus wasn't finished. With a touch of humor that brought smiles to weary faces, he painted a vivid picture. "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Laughter rippled through the crowd as they imagined someone with a massive wooden beam protruding from their face, trying to perform delicate eye surgery. But beneath the humor lay a pointed truth about self-awareness and humility. Jesus' voice took on a new tone, protective, almost cautionary. "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." The crowd grew quiet, considering these words. Jesus was not contradicting his earlier teaching about not judging others, but suggesting a certain discernment was necessary, wisdom about when and with whom to share spiritual truths. Sensing questions in their hearts about how to navigate life's challenges without the rigid structure of rules they were accustomed to, Jesus offered a simple, profound solution. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Jesus looked at the parents in the crowd, many with children at their sides. "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him?" A father pulled his young son closer, understanding the power of the comparison. God's care surpassed even a parent's natural love. So, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. With these words, Jesus distilled pages of religious law into a single principle of compassion and consideration, a rule of thumb that could guide every interaction, every decision affecting others. But lest anyone think this new way was easy or effortless, Jesus issued a solemn warning. "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." The image was stark. Two paths diverging, one crowded and inviting, the other less traveled and demanding. Jesus was not offering a popular way, but one that required intention, effort, and sometimes walking alone. "Watch out for false prophets," he cautioned. "They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Jesus gestured to the surrounding countryside, where vineyards and orchards dotted the landscape. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them. The practical wisdom resonated with the farmers and orchard keepers in the crowd. They knew you could tell the nature of a tree not by its appearance but by what it produced. So it was with those who claimed to speak for God. Jesus' voice grew more serious, his gaze seemingly able to pierce through pretense to the heart. Not everyone who says to me, "Lord, Lord," will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles?" Then I will tell them plainly, "I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers." A chill ran through the crowd. Jesus was claiming authority to judge at the final day, an authority that belonged to God alone. And he was suggesting that religious performance, even seemingly miraculous acts, was not the same as genuine relationship with him. Drawing his lengthy teaching to a close, Jesus offered one final parable. "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." As he spoke, some in the crowd glanced toward the horizon, where dark clouds were beginning to gather. They knew about sudden storms and flash floods that could sweep away homes built in the wrong places. Jesus' metaphor struck home. A life built on mere religious knowledge without application was as vulnerable as a house with no foundation. When Jesus had finished saying these things, a profound silence fell over the hillside. The crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he taught as one who had authority, not as their teachers of the law. No one moved for several moments. The religious leaders who had come to observe this new teacher exchanged troubled glances. The common people sat thoughtfully, turning over his words in their minds. Finally, a child's voice broke the silence, asking a question of his father. Like a spell broken, the crowd began to stir, to gather their things, to discuss in hushed tones what they had heard. As Jesus made his way down the hillside, followed closely by his disciples, the crowds parted to let him pass. Some reached out to touch his garment. Others simply watched him go. Their lives forever changed by 3 days on a hillside, with a teacher who spoke of a kingdom they could scarcely comprehend, but deeply longed for. The Sermon on the Mount was complete, but its impact was just beginning. Words that would echo through generations, challenging and inspiring, comforting and confronting, offering a vision of life in God's kingdom that was at once impossibly demanding and irresistibly appealing. What none on that hillside could yet fully grasp was that the one who spoke these words would not only teach the way, but become the way, the embodiment of the kingdom he proclaimed, the living bridge between the holy God and a broken humanity.